In many of the interviews and lectures and commentary that August Wilson made over the years, and things that he wrote, he lays out fundamentally where his poetic aesthetic is. And there's a reason why I've left August Wilson for the end of the course. All the things that we've talked about, the Black Vernacular, the Negro spirituals, the blues, jazz, the slave narratives, the narratives of the African American, the question of whose story is being told, who is telling that story, and to whom is the story being told. All of those things culminate in somebody like August Wilson. What Langston Hughes says in The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain about finding in the African American life and story the full gamut of poetic expression, what Toni Morrison declares as important to that expression, what James Baldwin declares, all of them seem to be collected inside of this great playwright August Wilson. So here are some key factors. August Wilson would consider the blues as the foundation for his work, and it's the element of the blues that we talk about is story. In many ways, one of the best ways to read August Wilson's plays is to understand them to be a series of blues songs stitched together by narratives of memory, narratives that are constantly haunted by the memory, by the understanding, by the impact of enslavement, of the migration across the Middle Passage from Africa, and an attempt to recreate a kind of human dignity and a human beauty and a human possibility in the present. The blues are the narrative of retelling that story, of reclaiming that story. And therefore, fundamentally, the blues in August Wilson's plays are about the individual, the American individual who is standing against the world and trying to understand the world. Each of the plays contain these individuals who sing these arias, these blues-like arias throughout. When we think of Joe Turner's Come and Gone, all of them from Loomis to Bynum to Seth to Pentecost, all of these characters, including even Selig, all of them are telling their stories, and he has them tell their stories. Then there's the jazz, and jazz is the improvisation. Jazz is the way that his plays are an orchestration, that they, even though they're these individual blues songs, they're connected by dissonance and harmonies and distorted harmonies. They're connected by these things. Then there's the Negro spiritual, because running throughout all these plays is this profound sense of spiritual magic. Always throughout the plays, there's a moment of sublimation when something happens that is magical, that is transformative, that is healing, and that's a quest for that healing. At the end of Joe Turner's Come and Gone, Bynum declares Loomis to be shining like new money. He says, "You are shining, Loomis, like new money." That declaration is really important. At the end of the piano lesson, there's this incredible moment where the ghost of the enslavers and the sharecroppers from the south of Mississippi come to haunt the home of this family in Pittsburgh. And there's almost a kind of exorcism where that ghost is taken out, because that ghost, of course, is the unsettled spirit of a white man who has been incredibly brutal. And he and his ancestors have been incredibly brutal to the family, and who has been killed. And the question is, who killed him? Who murdered him? But that ghost is exorcised out of it. I mean, in play after play, Wilson finds these moments when people get together and they sing. And then, of course, there's the Negro spiritual, the gospel, the idea of how song underlies it, not individual song, but in every one of his plays, the characters find their way towards, in the most organic and natural way, towards singing a song, singing songs collectively in call and response dynamic. There is throughout Wilson that acute awareness of an African sensibility, an African poetic, and an African aesthetic, and this comes through in these stunning and complex plays. Wilson's plays are also, to almost each one of them, he declared, drawn from, influenced by, in fact, many of them are triggered by the art of Romare Bearden. Romare Bearden is a great African American collagist who is probably the greatest collagist that America has ever produced. And his collages, which you can look up online, tell the story of the African American experience. And Wilson, in each of his plays, Joe Turner's Come and Gone is based on a particular collage that he had seen. Wilson had seen, called A Painting of a Boarding House, and it's actually the piece is actually called Milhand's Lunch Bucket. Milhand's Lunch Bucket. We're looking inside a boarding house. There's an image of a kind of matriarch woman, an African American woman in full white, as if her picture is hanging on the wall. She haunts the house. And it is Wilson says when he saw that place, he wanted to people this boarding house with these characters. And that's how Joe Turner's Come and Gone emerged. So the blues, African American art, jazz music, all these elements feed into what Wilson is trying to do with his work, with all his work. And all his work tells this fantastic story of the experience of African American. One of the interesting things about Wilson's plays is, of course, that there are few characters that recur. And the Selleck's character that recurs is a white character, the only white characters in the play. And these white people who come through the play are finders. They're Negro finders. And Selleck in this play is his family line goes all the way back to slavery. And during slavery, his family were slave catchers. They were the ones who, when slaves escaped, they went and found them. They were the ones who, when slaves escaped to the north, they would leave the south and go to the north to recapture them and bring them back into slavery. That's Selleck's family. And then after the Civil War and the freedom of the slaves, when African Americans were dispersed because of the war, these were the ones who then turned their job into a money-making venture where black people would pay them to go and find their scattered family members. So the family members who have been driven out of the South by the Ku Klux Klan, driven out of the South by plantation owners, driven out of the South by the laws, and scattered all around. It is that same group that seek money for them to go and find them, and that's the same Selleck that is there. So what Wilson is doing is that he carries throughout all his work the connection, the historical connection of the African American that goes as far back as slavery. And the last thing I would say is that he does something quite fascinating in a number of the plays where he creates a woman, a character, who is 300 years old. And she's 300 years old unremarkably. It's not fantastical, it's not magical. She simply is 300 years old. And so what he actually does is he creates a character that has a memory and a knowledge that extends back into the period of slavery. So she can speak to people and address people and talk about the history of slavery. It's pure genius about the ways in which Wilson created this incredible imaginative landscape through the plays that he created. So when we get back, we'll start talking more specifically about Joe Turner's Come and Gone.